They're checking for those of you who are watching us out on YouTube or Facebook on the music. So just know that we're working on it. So grateful that you're joining us this morning. It is in that energy of gratitude that we are joining together today, that our friends at Congregation Beth Israel are safe. I was so grateful that I got that news so that I could sleep well last night. And we just continue to hold that community in our thoughts and our prayers, knowing that, even though this event is over, I'm sure there will be ripple effects for all of the people who were involved there, as well as us. It hits your heart in a way that is hard to describe, other than to know that, and to know that our work was to see God's love, God's peace in the presence. Sometimes it's such a helpless feeling, but yet I just had to keep reminding myself this is what I could do, and that God was in the midst of all of this unfolding. So, to Rabbi Charlie and to that entire congregation, know that we continue to pray with you. We stand with you and are so grateful for all of the police and other law enforcement agencies that came together that helped to resolve this situation without any more um, loss of life than that of the hostage or the hostage taker, and there's still a lot more unfolding about this. So we'll just know that there is a sense of peace and safety that can return to that community, and we hold that for this community too, and all groups gathering today, that that we continue to know that there is a path to peace for each and for all of us. We just take a moment as we center in to that divine connection, into our awareness of it alive within us, to know that we are one in the love of God. We are one in the spirit of God. We are one in our humanity, even though at times it can feel like we are separated in so many ways. And we just see that love of God infilling this community, the community of Congregation Beth Israel, and church communities all around the globe, in this same prayer for peace on earth, and for people to know how sacred life is, and that we are each called to support and to enliven that sacred life force in each of us. We just see peace guiding the way as each person and each community heals through this. And we are grateful, God, to know that we never walk this path alone. Breathe into this moment in each of us your love, your light, and your peace. And so it is. Amen. And now join with us as we gather together and sing.
Breathe on me, breath of God. My spirit longs for you. Hide me in your fathering arms. Fill up my longing soul. Flood over me like a river, my God. Immerse me in your living stream. Awaken the song that you placed in my heart. Spirit, breathe on me. Spirit, breathe on me. Breathe on me, breath of God. Burn bright, eternal fire. Spirit, draw me near to heart. You are my one desire. Flood over me like a river, my God. Immerse me in your living stream. Awaken the song that you placed in my heart. Spirit, breathe on me. Spirit, breathe on me. Flood over me like a river, my God. Immerse me in your living stream. Awaken the song that you placed in my heart. Spirit, breathe on me. Spirit, breathe on me.
Good morning, everyone. How you guys doing this morning? All right, so the unity principle that we're going to highlight today is principle number 1, and that states that there's one presence and one power in the universe, God, the good and omnipotent. Now, the core value for today is joy, which states, we express deep and abiding feelings of peace and delight, acknowledging the Christ in each of us. We promote and instill connection to our higher beliefs through spiritual teachings, and we offer healing services throughout the year. There's an abundance of joy like rain available to us. Sometimes we go through a drought where joy seems hard to come by. But during those times, we often see joy or happiness as a brass ring that has to be grabbed or something we have to run after or seek after in order to get back. But think of it more as if you're an archaeologist. And what do archaeologists do? They dig up and dust off stuff. So, so what I'm saying is our joy is right where we left it. And sometimes all we have to do is just dig it up and dust it off. So for our daily word today, it states, rise. I rise in consciousness to help create a world that works for all. Throughout time, there have been people who led lives that changed the world forever. Their words and deeds provided hope and inspiration for those who would carry forth their legacies of love, growth, evolution, and long after they left this life. Their most powerful contribution, however, was their ability to inspire others to express their own divine purpose. As more and more people reach their highest potential, the whole of humanity ascends. Today, I honor those who have led lives of service, striving for love, truth, and justice. I take steps not just to commemorate their journeys and contributions, but to embark upon my own. I rise, grateful to contribute all I can to the growth and evolution of humankind. In Ezra chapter 10, verse 4 says, take action, for it is your duty, and we are with you. Be strong and do it.
Matt. So this morning we are continuing our series of looking at the Bible through the colors, through the lens of the spiral dynamics model. And if you missed last week, I would encourage you to go back and watch it because it's kind of a lot to take on when you're first really just trying to understand what this model represents so that we can use it to expand and understand our own perspectives and the ways that we look at not only this sacred text, but how we look at the way things are unfolding in our lives today. Because spiral dynamics offers a perspective of our human evolution using different value systems and colors to just help support us in our understanding and our ability to speak about it. It begins with the premise that people and cultures share values and that these values help determine the patterns of growth, both in healthy ways and sometimes in unhealthy expressions of those values. And each new level seems to have arisen in our evolutionary history in order to solve the problems that arose from the previous level. In other words, there's that when those unhealthy expressions start to show up, then we have to look and see how can we shift in order to be able to have a more perfect value system from which to live with. It's also interesting that each of these levels seem to switch back and forth between focus and values on the individual and focus and values on the collective. And so each color as it unfolds seems to go back and forth between these two. I think it's a reflection of our own internal struggles between our own individual autonomy and rights, as well as wanting to, as a natural expression of God's love, to support the culture in which we live in. So when we're looking at the individual, oftentimes what arises is this level of competition because when it's individual, there is this natural competition for resources, for what it is that we need versus what it is that someone else needs. Then, when it shifts to a group perspective or a group set of values, then it's on cooperation. And yet, there are unhealthy aspects of that too. So, we seem to be in this place where we are continuing to evolve to find that perfect balance within us and within our cultures. And we'll see more of that as we look at some of these different levels in the weeks to come. The beige level at the very bottom that I just touched on last week represents the very beginning of our humanity, of our human evolution, of our development. And its main focus was survival. You know, in that time as we were evolving, it every day was about getting enough to eat, having shelter, having warmth, keeping the family unit safe. And it started about 250,000 years ago, is what we're guessing, that we moved from evolving out of our ape ancestors and began to evolve in a different way that has become the human race. And our early brain system, which was the amygdala, that's what they call the oldest part of our brain. Some call it the reptilian part of our brain because it developed to help us in that specific area of survival. It is our fight, flight, or freeze area that our brain will signify to us if there's danger so that we can then make a quick determination. And it doesn't just signal our minds, but it signals the whole body. For those of you who are a little bit more into the physical side, um, when that is awakened in our brain, some of the vital organs they kind of shut down a little bit. We're flooded with cortisone. We're ready to either fight or to flee. Where all of our physical body is set up to support us in that survival mechanism. And over time, in order to gain greater protection for the family unit and to try and find a better way to live together with the competition of the resources that were available, we grew and we developed into the purple region, which is really a tribal. So, this is when our tribal systems began, where we began to band together in units and had greater protection with the unit. We're able to, in more ways, tap into the resources that would support all of the community. This purple level developed around 50,000 years ago. It began to move into this new way and this new value system within the culture of that time. And its main values were number one, keep the spirits happy because everything was a spirit then. The sun was a spirit, the sky was a spirit, the waters were spirits. So you had to figure out how to keep the spirits happy so that you had the resources available to you through the growing agricultural system and how to keep the tribe safe and warm. The world at that time was viewed from an animistic lens. And what that means is that they saw objects and creatures and events and everything around them as possessing some kind of distinct spiritual essence in them. It's kind of interesting that we've all these thousands upon thousands of years later have kind of returned to that to see what we would say God in everyone and everything. But they viewed these as having the potential to either help or to harm their tribes. And they sought to try and figure out what the rules were, how to obey, how to keep these spirits in a place where they would continue to support the tribe being safe. And it was during this period of time that great reverence began to grow for sacred objects, for places, for rituals. Rituals became a big part of this level of our human evolution. We see rites of passages, all sorts of ancient practices that were really put into place to try and keep people safe. And they're also formed for the first time sort of this hierarchical system that there were elders, there were the priests. Those were the ones that you had to obey. So all of the tribe looked to these leaders and listened to these leaders and followed the rules of these leaders because that's what they needed to do in order to keep the whole together and safe. And we can see this purple influence in the early writings of the Old Testament. What we're going to be doing is taking a look at how these showed up in these sacred texts that we still have today. Most of these purple value systems show up in the very beginning of the Old Testament. In Genesis 3, after Adam and Eve have eaten from the tree of life, we're told that then the Lord God said, "See, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. And now he might reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever." Therefore, the Lord God sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from which he was taken. In these early writings, we see numbers of places where it's not just the single God, but this idea of many gods, perhaps being the God we understand today being the top God, but there were many other gods. And we see the word we used quite a bit. Even in Genesis, in the creation story, it said we. And there are still places where it's understood that it's not just the one true God, but there are many gods at work. In Genesis 11, in the Tower of Babel story, many of you are familiar with that, where there was a scrambling of the language so that people couldn't understand us. The phrase was, "Let us go down. Let us go down and change the way these people are communicating." We also can see the values of believing that they must obey God or be severely punished in the story of Noah. In Genesis chapter 6 through 9, we hear about Noah being told about this upcoming flood because God was so unhappy with this human race that had been created. And God spares Noah and his family and yet wipes out the rest of humanity because they were not being obedient. And we also can see the rise of the ancient Israeli tribes in the early parts of the Old Testament. The development of sacrifice as a way to appease God. Sacrifices that in those early years even included the shocking request by God that Abraham sacrifice his son, that shows up in Genesis 22. We're told that when they came to this place that God had shown them, Abraham built an altar and they laid the wood. In fact, he had his son carry the wood for this altar that was to be his place of sacrifice. And he bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. And then Abraham reached out his hand and took the knife to kill his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. And then was told, Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. And Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught in a thicket by its horns, and went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering. So the ideas and the ways in which people engaged with who they understood God to be and how God interacted with them was very much tied to this idea of obedience and sacrifice. Abraham that day called the place the Lord will provide, as it's been translated. And on this mount, the Lord will always take care. Sacred spaces, sacred objects, and signs also were prevalent in these early scriptures. Mount Moriah, where Abraham took Isaac to be sacrificed, later became known as the city of David. It is where that next evolution of the Jewish tribes would begin to take power. Altars were built on the site, and it was deemed a sacred place for animal sacrifice and for rituals to be created that would be pleasing to God. We also see this idea of magic show up in the purple levels and in the Old Testament. Magic was given to Moses in the story of Exodus. There were plagues that were visited upon the Egyptians. He had a special staff that turned into a snake so that he could prove to the people that he was speaking on God's behalf. There was special practices that seem quite archaic to us now, but had very much the belief system instilled behind them, where they were told, the Jewish people were told, to spill blood on their front door. And that way the angel of death could tell that they were not the ones to be taken in this crisis. Rather, they would pass by their houses. Many of these practices, like sacrifice, remained as a value throughout the Old Testament, and their most sacred object still remained, and today still in its, at least in its ideology, was the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant. Today, there is about 10% of the population that lives primarily in the purple value system. They represent about 1% of the world's power. So they have a much greater population that still clings to these values as their core guiding practices, and yet we don't see their influence as much on a world level. And yet we see still today the influences of magic, of ritual, of sacredness in the objects around us, alive in many cultures today.
No.
Gay. Go back. Tana! No! Atokirina! Atokirina.
What are they?
Seeds of the sacred tree. Very pure spirits.
Uh-huh.
Les lois soit pour bal manger ou bien j'en ai fait hier dans la carreau c'est parce que gain des monde c'est malade gain monde c'est mari il perdu gain monde c'est travail il perdu gain monde sont ben chance qui besoin pour le travail yon qui ça veut dire guillon il retire sur pour le travail grand chemin son rite Carrefour c'est un rite entendez Marassa son rite, les bas son rite.
And even today, for many of us here, even in unity, we still can find the sacredness in rituals, in the way that they move us to a certain way of experiencing life or a certain experience of all that is holy. And they're important as part of our spiritual journey. In fact, I think as we look at all these levels, part of our call is to take the very best of them and to continue to integrate them into our ever more and more complex unfolding as a human race and as spiritual beings, and then be able to let go of the things that don't necessarily continue to serve. Many people I know create altars and other spaces that they use for their sacred prayer time or a time of meditation, a time of communion with God. In fact, we're learning in brain science discovering that certain rituals, when they're practiced over time, enhance our ability to make that spiritual connection, to go to a place that's beyond our human senses and bring us to a place where we can, through our heart intuition, be able to see and connect with things in a different way. There was a study done at Harvard one semester, and there was actually, they did this over a couple of different semesters, but the first half of the semester it went on as normal, and the professor lectured and assigned homework, and there was discussion. And then as the class began the second half, he introduced a bell at the beginning of the class and told them, every time you hear this bell, I want you to now take on the awareness that when you hear this bell, it's time to go to work. It's time for your brain to come fully present here, not be thinking about other things happening, but to come and be fully present here and be immersed in the subject that we're doing. And even told them when they were doing their homework that they should also sort of ring a bell again to signal to the brain that this is what we're going to do now, which is oftentimes what rituals will do. It's like, oh, I'm going into this space. This is what I'm here to do in this moment. And at the end of this, they found that there was a 25% improvement in their scores from the first half, where they didn't have any sort of this ritualistic training, to the second half because the brain was more easily able to shift into the task at hand. Oftentimes, you will see in sacred place of worships a bell that is rung at the beginning, and it has the same intention that when that bell is rung, or when we come together in an opening prayer, that it is there to support us in really becoming fully awake in that moment to whatever it is that we are being called to understand and to experience. So today for our meditation, I'm going to invite you just to get comfortable. We're going to move into it here in just a moment. And I've got my singing bowl here, which comes from our Eastern friends. And we'll begin by hearing that vibration that this bowl produces, that bell. And as we are in the meditation, I just am going to invite you to use a word. Pick whatever word you like: love, peace, joy, presence, spirit, God, one word. And then for this meditation time, to just continue to put your attention and your focus on repeating that one word internally. And every maybe 15 seconds or so, I'm going to ring the bell again. Just notice, have I drifted off somewhere, which often happens, and allow this sound to just bring you back. All you need to do is just come back and continue with your mantra. And we're going to use this as a way to allow ourselves to hopefully become more fully present and awake to what this meditation time offers to each of us. So as we move into this time of inward connection and reflection, I just invite you to get comfortable where you are. Allow yourself to just relax into this moment, perhaps closing your outer eyes so that you can more fully be aware of your internal state of being, aware of your breath as it flows gently and easily in and out of the body, aware of your heart as it rhythmically beats, pumping that life force to every part of your being. And as you just breathe into this moment, feel that heart space begin to open so that it becomes receptive to that universal life that beats as a part of you but is also present in all places, in all things, in all beings. And then just select a word, or allow your heart to select the word for you that you'll use during these next few minutes of inward connection. And begin to just speak that word quietly, inwardly, focusing on it. And as you slowly and gently begin to bring your attention back to this time and space, know that at any moment you can return to this inner sanctuary. And in this space, you can continue to know the value of our connectedness, our oneness, our ability to be a part of that flow, of that love. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. So, as I talked about at the beginning, each level has the things that have really served us and brought us into greater and greater being in our world. And there's also a shadow side to each one of these levels. And for the purple system, that shadow begins to arise when the tribes, especially the elders of the tribes, become overbearing. And usually this would happen in times of great fear and great calamity. And they would insist upon the submission to unpleasant rituals. And even at times, we found historically human sacrifice. When the animal sacrifices weren't working, they would start to employ desperate measures, ones that may have been outside of their initial value system, but they felt must be done for the good of the whole. In time, we see the rise at this level of the shift to an agricultural community, and the conditions and the values of that early humanity begin to change. Instead of being nomadic, populations form around farming resources. And over the next years, the human brain begins to continue to develop into greater and greater complexity. It also gives rise to what we call today the ego and that sense of self. So part of this natural evolution rose to say, I should have a say in the direction of my life. I may know better than those elders that are leading us, which then ultimately becomes the red phase, which is what we're going to explore next week. I think for me, what's most important to know is that we carry every one of these levels within us. Just as we look at the Bible in a metaphysical way to say we are each, at least in potentiality, each one of these characters, each one of these events live within each of us. And ritual is one of those things that we continue to use to serve us in our own spiritual path. And it can be a very powerful experience, especially oftentimes when it's done collective, to feel that sense of something greater than ourselves unfolding in the room. And our journey informs us that it only becomes unhealthy when ritual becomes more important than the people that it's there to serve and support. I want to share one quick story about this that happened yesterday. So, as I became aware of the situation unfolding at Congregation Beth Israel, I really started praying for, especially Rabbi Charlie, who I got to know over this last month as they so graciously allowed us to come and have our Christmas Eve services there. And this memory came to mind where the day before Christmas Eve, we had gone over there to bring them, we had to haul all of our equipment over there and looking at how we were going to set up their platform. They don't call it that. I don't know what the Jewish name for it is, but their sacred platform where they speak from. And so we were moving chairs around, and there was these two huge wooden doors. I don't know if you remember seeing them. And someone asked, well, what's, because we were going to put chairs in front of it, what's behind it? So I peeked in just a little bit. I thought, oh, this is one of their sacred, this is a sacred altar here. So I didn't open it much, but peeked in. And I thought, well, we better go check and see because, every tradition has its own sacred rules, and we didn't want to violate theirs. So I went in and asked Lindsay, their administrator, I said, is it okay if we put chairs in front of, the two wooden doors there? She said, yeah, but just don't open it. And I'm thinking, too late. I didn't confess to her at the time. I just thought, okay, it was just a peek. And some weird place in my brain yesterday went to, oh my God, I hope I didn't cause anything because somehow a Gentile peeked and opened and looked at their altar. I slapped myself pretty quickly to say, this is not the kind of God, that I ascribe to. The kind of God I know would never punish anybody because they broke a little rule. That's just not the way the God of my understanding works. But it showed me how deeply embedded some of these ideas are that we still carry with us from this level to say, if this happened, then somehow it was a result of God's unhappiness and God's intervention and making this happen. I know that's not true at all. I don't believe it to be true, but it was just interesting to me where subconsciously things all of a sudden popped up, part of this DNA that I still carry, that we all still carry from this aspect of our own human evolution. I knew and I continued to know that God was right there in the midst with them and just flood what I could do, what the power I had was to flood that place from my own being in love and saturated in that energy of peace. And I know there were millions of others also in that same space. In ministry, there are often things that show up and there are rules, and we call them sacred cows. It's like, no, we've always done it that way. We're not going to change that. And so our invitation, whether it's through events that arise and we find ourselves thinking certain thoughts or things that we still hold on to because that's the way we've always done it, is to look at the rituals and the sacred objects that are still a part of our life and to look at their value in supporting you. Some things still can have great value. And if you discover there's some places that maybe you didn't even realize that you were still holding on to as part of your value system that no longer serve you, just be willing to let them go. As we move through all levels of our human and spiritual evolution, I invite your willingness to become the perfect blend of all of the colors that we see in this spiral system and all of the colors of the wind.
Think you own whatever land you land on. The earth is just a dead thing you can claim. But I know every rock and tree and creature has a life, has a spirit, has a name. Think the only people who are people are the people who look and think like you. But if you walk the footsteps of a stranger, you'll learn things you never knew, you never knew. Have you ever heard the wolf cry to the blue corn moon? Or ask the grinning bobcat why he grinned? Can you sing with all the voices of the mountain? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? Come run the hidden pine trails of the forest. Come taste the sun-sweet berries of the earth. Come roll in all the riches all around you. And for once, never wonder what they're worth. The rainstorm and the river are my brothers. The heron and the otter are my friends. And we are all connected to each other in a circle, in a hoop that never ends. How high does the sycamore grow? If you cut it down, and you'll never know. And you'll never hear the wolf cry to the blue corn moon, for whether we are white or copper skinned, we need to sing with all the voices of the mountains. We need to paint with all the colors of the wind. You can own the earth and still all you own is earth and chill. You can paint with all the colors of the wind.
Thank you, Noel, for being willing to sing that this morning. That's one of my favorites, and it just seemed to be the perfect song for today. It is our opportunity now to share of our financial good with this community, or at least to remind you of that opportunity to give. We are not doing a formal offering while we're here in the fellowship hall, but we have baskets available at each door for you to drop your gift off as well as to receive an affirmation. And for those of you who are watching us via the live stream, we have opportunities for you to give to. You can go to centerofunity.org to our give page and share your abundance with us there. And then if you scroll down, there's also a place to receive an affirmation to bless you this week. We are grateful today and want to invite all of you to come and discover where we've been this past year, where we're visioning going in this coming year at our annual meeting today at 1 o'clock on Zoom. You can again find that link on the website or in the e-news. So for all of the good that is flowing in and through and out of this community, join with me as we bless it together. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. Thank you, Father, Mother, God. We're going to get that one on there too. Thank
Good morning. If you're watching us for the first time, we're glad you have chosen us. We invite you to visit our website and fill out the Connect card. If you're local, we invite you to join us. If you're visiting us in person for the first time, please complete a visitor card found on the table with the offering baskets on either side of the room and drop it in the basket or leave it at the visitor desk at the front. We welcome all of you. Appreciation. You may recall that we recently donated blankets, socks, and shoes to Church on the Slab, a spiritual community in Fort Worth serving the homeless. We also tied to them in December. We received a lovely thank you note from them as follows. Dear Mary and Unity Church family, thank you for being a part of the church experience here at Church of the Slab, on the Slab. Your tithe paid for the light bill and candles for our Christmas Eve service. Praise God and thank you, each one, for your heart. We're grateful for the opportunity to join in spirit and friendship with Church on the Slab as we share our good with others to help others. So, to Church on the Slab and to us, we love you, we bless you, we truly appreciate you. We behold the Christ in you. Namaste.
Today we have John Thomas is here from Carter Blood Care to invite us to share of something that's much needed in our community right now. I think either one of those will work. If you'll kind of hold it up though, so everyone can hear, that would be wonderful. Perfect.
Okay, I hope you can hear me because I have a lot to say. I promise I'll get you out though. Hello, my name is John Thomas. I'm with Carter Blood Care. Some of you may remember me from last year. We're in a very serious situation. The Metroplex has grown, and if you don't believe that, look at all the license plates on the back of the cars, and you're going to see they're from all over the United States. Our offerings have not grown like the Metroplex has, and we are behind. We're far behind on having enough blood to save little Timmy, who's in the hospital, who needs a transfusion, or Mary. But there's hundreds of little Timmys or little Marys all over the Metroplex. If we don't start getting something from those who are coming in, but those who are here, if you can give, please do. We're having a blood drive this next Sunday, and it's going to be from 9 o'clock till 12 noon. I'm going to sign up people out in the lobby. So if you feel good, you feel that you can, and you would like to donate and save up to 3 people's lives, please do. Come out and see me. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions or give you any instructions. If you're at home and you would like to sign up, you can go on our website of www.carterbloodcare.org. And you can sign up that way by putting in either the date or even the church name. And it'll pull it up and you'll see what spaces are available. We need you. We need every one of you. Yes, ma'am, I think you have a question. It's a wonderful question. Thank you for doing that or asking. The FDA governs all blood processors. They are the ones who set the rules. But a year ago, actually about a year and a half ago, they did say that if you were stationed on a base and you lived in Europe during 1980 to 1993, that you can now give. If you were not stationed on a base whenever you were there, you still cannot give because of what they call the mad cow disease. Did that answer your question? Right. Yeah, exactly. I'll ask them next time I see them. How about that? All right, very good. Thank you all. We appreciate it. We had a banner time last time. We had 17 donations. We're looking to even do more than that. Bless you all. I appreciate being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you.
Here's what's coming up at Center of Unity. Be sure to join us online today for the annual meeting at 1 p.m. We will review budgets, receive updates, and elect new board of directors. The Zoom ID is on the screen, or you can access it from our website or the COU app. We're beginning a time of after-service fellowship, and we need your help to provide snacks. Each week, we ask those whose last name matches the schedule to bring a healthy snack to share with the community. Join us as we start our 6th year of the book club. Our January pick will rock your world as it looks at our rapidly changing modern world through the eyes of an unforgettable narrator to explore a fundamental question: what does it mean to love? The Zoom ID is on the screen, or you can access it from our website or the COU app. We're looking forward to offering Sunday school to all ages soon. So that we can be ready for their return, we need to know which age groups will be returning, and we're looking for volunteers to facilitate and teach the lessons. Please complete the surveys that you can find in our weekly email or on the COU app. Come celebrate the Year of the Tiger with Corked at PF Chang's in Grapevine after church on Sunday, January 30th. Please RSVP by January 26th to Barbara Looters. There are multiple ways you can make a donation to Center of Unity. You can drop your donation off at the church, mail it to our P.O. Box, visit our website, use the COU or Venmo app, or you can text to give. Your continued support is greatly appreciated.
So one more quick update for those of you who parked in back. So we got a bunch of lumber back there. So the trusses have arrived. They are starting the work in the sanctuary to get that prepared. We're probably still looking at a couple weeks because there's just a lot of logistical cranes, other things that have to be scheduled in. But we're hoping, and I'm asking you to hold the vision with me, that in 4 weeks we will be back in our sanctuary. I'm so ready, and I know you guys are too. So we are celebrating that. Continue to just add your good energy to this process, that it all falls into place and we get back in there. And we are planning to have a really grand celebration. I'm seeing us having a lunch in here afterwards and just being able to really enjoy this space and being in community with one another. So let's join together. Let's stand, and we're going to sing the peace song.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as our Father, family all are we. Let me walk with my family in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me, and list me the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
And so we give thanks for this sacred ritual of singing the peace song at the end of each service and knowing the prayer for protection. Let's speak it together. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. And the presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Have a beautiful week, everyone.